They came from every corner of Britain. Students and teachers angry at changes that will triple university fees and slash spending on education.
The huge deficit is not the fault of the people who are now being decimated by the cuts.
Protest organiser Karen Doyle told me the students fear they'll be saddled with a debt they cannot hope to repay.
It is going to be generations, whole generations of young school students who are going to be cut out of education and the kind of benefits that have been won over decades.
Adam is the first in his family to reach university. The cuts won't affect him, but he's worried they'll prevent the rest of his family from even reaching college.
What I want to see is my younger siblings going to university without a ridiculous amount of debt. Now they're increasing that 300%.
They can't pin their recession on us.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah. Because it's the rich bankers that cause this. They caused everyone to be poor. They can't get their money back that they gave to the bankers to sort themselves out. From us.
Protests like this have so far failed to stop the government's cuts. But these protests, these students are hoping it might turn into something bigger, a revolt against the government itself.
And so the protests have gone on day and night around the capital. The rapid politicisation of these students has taken the establishment by surprise. Many, like protest organiser Sean Rillo-Razka, are from the middle class.
Workers now are going to feel the lash of these cuts, and people up and down the country, their kids aren't going to get the EMA anymore, they're going to be losing their jobs, they're going to be losing their pensions. So what we're going to see, I hope, is an explosion of militancy and activism amongst trade unionists and amongst workers, amongst the unemployed, amongst the disabled, amongst the people who are really the front line of this, a civil society saying, no, we're not going to accept this, what this government's doing.
I think it would be fair to say that we were taken by surprise. And that's largely because we hadn't had unrest or disorder on that scale for a long time in London.
At police headquarters, senior officers are trying to work out how they can best handle this upsurge in public anger. Bob Broadhurst is the public order commander for London's Metropolitan Police.
What you'll see at the moment in the student movement in the UK is various factions. Those who want to be, if you like, mature about it and have a sensible political debate, make their point, versus those who think students should be spiky, that should leave a trail of devastation behind them and go back to their anarchic ways, back at their squats or whatever.
We're going to be marching down to Westminster, so let's redouble our efforts.
Today, students are preparing for yet another rally in central London. Some of the previous protests have been violent. Property was damaged and police made several arrests. So before today's march, Sean is trying to make sure they have more control.
This is courtesy of the Metropolitan Police's leaflet. So, save me having to make one. It's quite a simple route. We'll go down Mallet Street that way, turn left into Russell Square, go round Russell Square.
All the police are smiling, which is good. No helmets anywhere.
Does that make a change?
It's a relief. It is. There's no intimidation today. It's going to be a good day.
But the students are adopting new methods to stay ahead of the police. The social networking being used in revolutions across the Middle East has a key role in London as well.
It enables us to know where the police are, where a lot of police are, and it gives us like a compass, and the red signs show in what direction the police are, and to avoid that direction, the greens show possible escape methods, like so you can go in that direction or that direction. They just let you know how to avoid the kettle.
They can communicate messages to each other with no great IT infrastructure, just an iPhone or an iPad and a common sense application of Google Maps and other stuff. They were using Twitter accounts, they were sending Twitter messages to everybody saying, 10 minutes time, Trafalgar Square, and off they'd all run. And we'd be stood there thinking, where have they all gone?
Armed with their new technology and speed, today's protest led the students right through central London.
So we've had to adapt to that. We now use Twitter. We bring in some of our younger staff that understand this networking, just to try and put our point across, and also to try and keep up with what they're doing.
Today the rage is kept under control, but crowds will only get bigger and angrier as the cuts continue. Every government department is losing about 1/5 of its budget. 500,000 public sector jobs will go over the next 4 years. The impact will be felt well outside the capital. I'm heading north, where the cuts are already being felt. Newcastle was once a thriving steel and shipbuilding town in the northeast, a region which now has the highest unemployment rate in Britain. In the central suburb of Gateshead, volunteers and workers from the Citizens Advice Bureau have called an urgent public advice day.
Oh, we're just keen to find out whether we'd be entitled to any help towards our rent and poll tax.
The rent?
Yes, because we're on pensions and we just wanted to know whether we'd qualify or not.
Many people here rely on some form of unemployment, health or housing benefits to survive, and those benefits are now being slashed. CAB manager Alison Dunn explained the changes.
They're changing the local housing allowance, which means a reduction in income of between £6 and £47 for sole claimants.
Which is a lot of money for people.
It's a great deal of money. In some cases it could be as much as 20-25% of their income. What this means is that they will have to go back to their landlords and renegotiate rents, and when they can't do that they'll be forced to look for alternative accommodation, often in low demand areas, and with that comes all sorts of additional problems. They may be separated from family, friends, from their support network. They may have to travel further to take their children to school, which will have additional costs. So it really is a very big deal.
We're actually looking at some quite significant cuts. There are a number of measures which are...
Pamela Anderson is the local council official in charge of the housing benefits. I expected her to defend the cuts.
In terms of housing benefit, there are other ways that they could do it. It's quite a severe impact on some households. They could have lessened that impact by doing it a stage at a time, looking at it in a more rounded way, looking at different things that they could have done. But I think the cuts that they're bringing in are very, very severe.
You don't agree with it then?
I agree that there have to be cuts. I'm not disagreeing with that, but it's just the amount and the impact on some of the lower income families is too much.
The government says it can no longer afford the UK's current welfare bill. One of the ways it's hoping to save money is by imposing stricter health checks on people like Martin Lewis.
I'm disabled, I'm on benefits, and I want to know how it's going to affect me.
What do you think? What does it say so far?
I'd say it's work shy to lose benefits. Well, I'm not work shy. I used to work, but I can't work because I'm disabled.
The new checks mean if people like Martin are deemed fit for work, they could lose their benefits.
Blind people now are going to be found fit for work because they're exempt at the moment. And unbelievably, if you can propel yourself for up to 50 yards in a wheelchair, they're going to find you fit for work.
Because I have a mental health problem, which I've told you about.
Yeah, but then you've got physical problems as well, so that makes you sort of like doubly in need, if you see what I mean. You've got the two sets, but you've still got a right of appeal, which we're doing a lot of appeals at the moment, and we've still got an 86% success rate of turning over those decisions at the tribunal service.
Government cuts are also spreading up the social ladder. Not far from Newcastle is the North Yorkshire village of Great Ayton. It's prime Conservative voting country, as well as being the boyhood home of Captain James Cook.
He went round the world long before there were any sort of computer things to direct him.
What do you think he'd think about closing libraries?
He wouldn't be happy. Definitely wouldn't be happy.
Oh, he wouldn't be, would he?
He'd be very militant.
Retiree Jennifer Roberts is leading her own rebellion against the local council. It's planning to close more than half the 42 libraries in the area, blaming central government funding cuts.
Well, it is the heart. If you cut out the heart, the body dies, doesn't it?
The cause has found support here, with 600 people from this village alone rallying to save their local library.
North Yorkshire County Council say they're being forced to make these huge savings instantly because the government are saying it's got to be done, but we don't think they're choosing to do it in the right way. It shouldn't be the bottom staff, it shouldn't be the libraries, which people depend on in a community like this village. They should be more rigorous in making cuts to the, well, maybe at the top layer, but certainly in the middle, not at the bottom.
Back in Newcastle, more people arrive seeking help from the Citizens Advice Bureau. Susan Mukiachia is here to see debt advisor Andy McGill.
The issue is that I'm going to be losing my home due to the government cuts.
Susan suffers from medically verified depression that prevents her from working. That meant she was able to receive a benefit that paid most of the interest on her house. In October, that benefit was halved without warning, leaving her with growing arrears.
So what happens there, Andy, if they sell the property for 90,000 and then out with that shortfall, would I have to go bankrupt?
Well, you don't have to. It will leave, you'll probably be talking about £40,000 worth of what will then be classed as an unsecured debt. So the official receiver who takes control of your affairs once you are bankrupt will decide whether or not to sell your car. But if it's worth that as much money as you said it's worth, that is likely to happen, I'm afraid.
For Andy, this is just one of many personal debt crises emerging as a result of the cuts.
Since the recession in general, so you're talking probably since 2008, it's been a steady increase in the number of people coming through the door for advice about debt problems because of redundancy, companies going under, people being laid off.
And crucial as it is, even Andy's job is now threatened.
The government at the moment are looking at reforming legal aid and reviewing what exactly areas and what criteria of law they are going to continue to fund. Debt advice, unfortunately, is one area that they are saying won't be funded.
I arranged to meet Susan at her home. She says she tried to sell it to clear the debt. But a stagnant property market means there are simply no buyers. She's now been served a repossession order and has less than 2 weeks to leave.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just how sad it all is and how it shouldn't have happened. But people say, oh, it's only bricks and mortar, Susan, and you think it's not, it's my home. I've had it for 10 years, I've done a lot to it, I love living here. I've loved it more than my family home. And it's not just bricks and mortar to people, it's the homes.
So what socially is going to be the impact of this?
Well, inevitably homelessness will increase, illegal money lending will inevitably increase, potentially crime levels will go up, evictions will rise, families potentially could be on the street.
In London, the anger at the cuts is building. Once again, the student protesters are headed to the site of some of the worst clashes so far, the Conservative Party headquarters.
So we're now approaching Millbank, where the last protest turned very violent. The police are trying to say to them they should hold the crowd back.
Suddenly, the crowd tries to push through the police lines. For a moment, the police appear caught off guard.
Trouble is what's happening, is what the government is doing. If they weren't doing what they were doing, there wouldn't be any trouble.
With youth unemployment now at a record high of 20%, these protests have no end of recruits. And protest organisers have no intention of giving up.
We're going to keep moving, we're going to keep marching, and we're going to keep making sure that it's not business as usual in the capital.
And the the force that's meant to keep the lid on this trouble is itself in for thousands of job losses.
We're going to go through some pain ourselves, and we're going to go through that pain in the same time as we have to manage people's protests on the streets.
The next mass rally is planned for 3 weeks' time, when organisers hope a union-backed crowd of 100,000 people will bring London to a halt. As the cuts bite deeper, Britain's winter of discontent is in danger of becoming a summer of rage.